Our next reader is Wendy Flemons, and Wendy is reading the only creative non-fiction entry this evening. Wendy's a current Alexandra Writer Centre member and has taken courses here. She enjoys writing about her life experiences and sharing them with others. She left a career in healthcare 9 years ago to raise her family and has been parenting for the past 15 years. Wendy Flemons.
The piece that I'm reading is called The Eye of Retrospect. I was drowsy as we made the 3-hour trip home from Edmonton to Calgary. My husband was driving, so I gave myself permission to aimlessly gaze out the window and candidly reflect upon the turns and stops in my life's path. We quickly came alongside a semi-truck pulling an animal transport carrier. I looked over, curious to see what kind of animals were inside. My gaze met with the large brown eye of a cow. Her eye was framed inside of an oval hole in the metal grate that trapped her. I pondered her destination for a moment, unsure really what the possibilities were. There was something in her eye that pierced the distance between us, and I felt that she knew where she was destined to go and what she was destined to be. One might question whether a cow can truly know anything, but there was a veil of darkness, a sagging of skin on bone that only comes with knowing. Just as one eye sees clearly, the other eye is in the dark, unsure. There is a moment of knowing and not knowing simultaneously. And so it was with me in the summer of 2006. One eye knew of my inner struggles, my inability to cope, my inconsistent and irrational behavior, and my uncontrollable tears, while my other eye saw only a fleeting problem in an otherwise perfect existence. In April of that year, after much paperwork, planning, and preparation, we traveled to Ethiopia to meet the son that we had at that point adopted on paper. We were ready to welcome him into the space we had created for him in our family of 5. After 29 hours of travel, minimal sleep, and a hefty dose of caffeine, we went to the foster home, simultaneously dazed and vibrating. It was surreal, out of body, unimaginable, and emotionally overwhelming. We waited without breath or rational thought in the lush and colorful courtyard near the cozy 3-bedroom house. Despite the firmness of the ground beneath me, I felt deliberately detached as our tiny 2-year-old son, Johannes, was led around the corner and towards us. As I crouched down, he shyly sidled into my lap and slung his scrawny arm around my neck like an old friend. In vain, he tried to hide a smile, and I tried to hide my tears. I buried my face into the crook of his neck, taking in his smell for the first time. I felt overwhelmed by pride in all of us for being so courageous, but there was something else lingering. On the morning of our second day together in Ethiopia, my husband and I lay quietly in bed, listening to the hum of the morning call to prayers. Johannes sat up in his bed beside ours and exclaimed with urgency, "Shinty!" After the grab and run to the bathroom was complete, we brought Johannes into our bed. He lay right on top of us, full of smiles and hugs. He jabbered away to us in Amharic as if we fully understood. In confusion, I asked my husband, why is he so happy? He doesn't even know us. Playfully, he answered, what's not to like? In retrospect, this was the beginning of my expectations not being met. I expected Johannes, and in fact any adopted child, to be somewhat miserable, periodically unhappy, and at the very least out of sorts. He was none of these things. I expected our initial union to be like oil and water, not like coffee and cream. I expected to do a lot more vigorous mixing before feeling a blend. I felt like my job description had just drastically changed without my input. What? A happy, confident, strong-willed, capable, affectionate, and adaptable child? How will I deal with this? Nothing I had read prior to the trip prepared me for a child who would do well. Seriously. After 2 weeks in Ethiopia, we returned to Canada, and our first few weeks were spent in hibernation together so that we could establish ourselves as Johannes's family and slowly introduce him to his new life. Eventually, we ventured out into the community that had supported us so much in our preparation stage. Everyone focused on our delightful, gorgeous son, who was doing great, better on every front than we expected. My husband and I, in grave contrast, were exhausted, frustrated, and feeling more like geese without wings than capable parents, never mind the rescuers that some perceived us to be. To add pepper to our growing wounds, our 4-year-old daughter was exhibiting behaviors that we had only ever seen in other people's children. And the older kids who had traveled with us to Ethiopia were suffering from jet lag, stacks of missed schoolwork, and persistent stomach and bowel upset. Johanna shone like a daisy in a field of wilted dandelions. Thank you.